What does it mean to have the American dream today? Like, what is that? Is that still alive in America today?
Well, it gets confused by people because you see these politicians, they just talk about these platitudes. They don't talk about, what do you want to own? You want to own a home? You want to have a great life for your kids? You want to have a good education? You want to have your kids live a better life than you had, right? And that's sort of the fundamental American dream of our country, right? We have got 2/3 of the American workforce does not have, they only have a high school education, right? And 1/3 has a college education. So 2/3 high school education, 1/3 college education, and the 2/3 live, ready for this? 7 years less. How is that possible? It's not the air, right? It's not the food, and it's not healthcare. It's despair. You work in an auto factory. They do NAFTA, right? Where they move your auto factory to Mexico. Who came up with this idea? This is like nuts, right? They move it down to Mexico. They gut Michigan. You lose your job. Where do you go? So you're so sad and you're so depressed. You take drugs. Then what do? They open the border and they bring fentanyl in, right? And it's despair. So we've got to fix it. And that's, Trump's key mission is let's take care of the American workers. Let's take care of America. Let's take care of America first. And people go, oh, that's crazy. Why is that crazy? How about we take care of America? And so that's sort of a key part of his initiative. Now, did I think about this 5 years ago? Of course not. I was rebuilding after September 11th. But now I am just focused on what's the right move for America. And that's why I'm all in with Donald Trump. His policies, his thinking, his way of just looking at things, his intuition is just right. So what happened is the Democrat Party, when I grew up, used to be the party of the worker, and the Republicans were the party of the businesses, right? And that's completely shifted. Now, Donald Trump talks about taking care of the American worker, the union worker, the rank and file, and the Democrats talk about the Green New Deal, right? And so they talk about electric cars. Who's buying an electric car? You're not buying an electric car if you're a farmer in the middle of the country. Electric cars don't work. Like a friend of mine, they're so left, incredibly left, and they live in Chicago. They're incredibly left. And they said they were going to visit their parents, and they have 2 electric cars, but they had to rent a car because their parents live a couple hundred miles away. And of course, the electric car can't possibly make it there and back. So they rent a regular car. I mean, what American worker is going out to buy an electric car? The answer is none of them. This is just coastal elite nonsense, has sort of infiltrated the Democrat Party. And now they're just out of touch with the American worker. And Donald Trump has literally pivoted the Republican Party to take care of the American worker. And it's really a fascinating change. So the name on the door is not right. And you've hit the point exactly. It's really what's on the inside. And on the inside of Donald Trump is, let's go protect the American worker. Inflation, right, changes everything. So when Donald Trump was in office, he had 3% GDP growth, 3% wage growth. So the average wages in America are growing 3%, right? And 2% inflation. So people were getting ahead, right? They were catching up, maybe 1%. But, when you talk about all of America, 1%, it's a lot, because it's everybody, right? Then the Democrats get elected. Now, you know why they did it, right? They're not in power during the pandemic. So they want to help. They really, really want to help. But then the economy sort of starts to rock in the end of 2020. 2021, we're booming. And in March of 2021, the Democrats do the American Rescue Plan, a solid 15 months too late. They put $1.9 trillion of new money into the system and create inflation. I go on TV at the time, I said, 15 months, the historical norm for over stimulus is 15 months later to get inflation. Okay? June of 22, Fed raises rates the first time. And here we go. So what inflation does, you're right. If I own a house, it inflates. If I own stocks, their earnings inflate. Right? If I'm living paycheck to paycheck, the costs of my eggs go up. the cost of gas goes up, the cost of my insurance goes up, I get crushed, right? It crushes the American worker. So that's why inflation is the meanest thing you can ever do to your people. Not to the rich. You're right. The rich people, but it's not the rich people have ducked and avoided it. It's the rich people, they own a house and they own stuff. And the stuff that they own goes up in value. But if you're spending your money, you're just getting pulverized, right? So the key is you got to bring great jobs here. You got to tariff the rest of the world and keep them the heck out. You got to bring the manufacturing back here. Sorry, I hit your mic. Right? Bring it back. And what happens is if you bring back manufacturing, then you'd say, well, how do you know there's so many workers to have all these jobs? There won't be. If you bring back American manufacturing into the great American economy and you protect the American workers, then there's going to be demand, excess demand, too many factories. And what's going to happen to the price of their services? Up it goes. So you're giving me like the greatest opening ever to talk about this stuff, but power. Let's just talk about power. We all need energy. We need power. So national security would say that all of our states and all of our people need domestic power. We are a net exporter of power. But what we do is we refuse to build pipelines to get our own energy to ourselves. So while we're net equal, we sell to others and import from others. And by the way, do you think the oil that we buy from Russia, and by the way, if you don't think we buy oil from Russia, you're wrong. Do you think it's clean oil from Russia? No, I don't think so. So what happens is we cancel our own pipelines, which really, instead of calling it the Keystone Pipeline, they should have called it the National Security Deliver Gas and Oil Across the United States of America. Instead, we cancel it because it won't be green enough. And then what we buy is our ports are full of oil coming in from Venezuela and from Russia. And we buy their oil, even though there's sanctions, we still end up buying their oil because they go through here and there and then it comes back in anyway. And then we burn dirty oil. So it's illogical. We let all of the pharmaceuticals like penicillin, we let the things that make it are made in China. And we don't think about the national security that if we had war with China, they just wouldn't give us, penicillin anymore. We buy batteries from where? Elon Musk complained to me that he has to buy his lithium to make batteries in Australia. And he says, where's the greatest lithium mines? Nevada. And we just found one, by the way, in Arkansas. Huge lithium mine. So we buy it in Australia, and then he puts it and goes through 7 time zones on a boat. That's really very, environmentally friendly to have a boat go from 7 time frames, and it comes here. It's just hypocrisy. The worst part is it's hypocrisy. If you want to be green and you want to be clean, which we all agree, we want clean water and clean air, but don't make believe that you're taking it from Australia and shipping it here and somehow it's green. National security matters. We got to think about manufacturing our stuff here, our pharmaceuticals here. We have to distribute oil and natural gas to ourselves here. So we are independent, not we're balanced, but half the people are buying it from outside and half buying it from inside. These are fundamental things that we need to think about. And that's the beauty of working for Donald Trump. He thinks about these things and he's the only one who thinks about them. Well, wait, but first, let's talk about the fentanyl thing. You see, so it's slightly different than everybody thinks. So all the fentanyl comes from China. Why? Like, what's the whole fentanyl thing? It's the gutting of America from the inside.
You think they're just playing like a century-long game and they say, we're going to rot your brain with TikTok, we're going to rot your population with fentanyl, and we're going to literally slowly kill you.
So that's what it is. Right? Why is the American workforce have 7-year less average life? Because what happens is if they get despair and they take a drug and the drug kills them, it kills them. So China is attacking America from its guts. It's getting stuff in your stomach. Right? It's going to get it directly into your stomach to try to kill you, right? Because who's our workforce who might take fentanyl? Right? Are they old people like 63-year-olds like me? No, right? They're the 18 to 30-year-olds, right? So if I kill them, then where are you going from here? No, I think it's the core evil that you really, and people don't call out core evil. Who makes fentanyl? They're core evil. It all comes from China. Donald Trump gets in office. He calls China and says, the next piece of fentanyl that comes in our country, I'm putting a 200% tariff on you, and your country must have our economy, because otherwise you won't employ your people. If your people are unemployed, then there'll be regime change. They'll rise up against the Communist Party. So stop the fentanyl, and you'll watch it stop. And that's the person who saved American workers' lives. Well, the whole open the border. So Donald Trump had 10 miles left. He built 500 miles. He had 10 miles left, and all the steel is in a factory. He had 10 miles left, and he made a deal with Mexico to protect the border. He said, I'm going to put tariffs on you, Mexico, unless you don't let people in. So the Mexican military kept the border closed. And then Biden just ended it on executive order his first day. He said, open the border. Why? Why would you open the border? Joe Biden, when he was young, was all against the border. Bill Clinton was against the opening the border. What happened?
I think I know. You want to know what I think that happened?
I think it's voters.
There's only one thing that I can think of that a bureaucratic administration could all get in a conference room, have a bunch of papers, studies, all this stuff, and come to the conclusion that we should do this for one reason. And it's because they looked at the economy and they said, we don't have enough workers. Let them all in.
Oh my God, I can't disagree more. That is just such a load of crap. Sorry.
No, again, that it's accurate.
I completely and totally disagree, because if you wanted workers, you would actually check who they are. You think the people who are sneaking into our country are ready to go to work? Are you out of your mind? They are ready to vote. For whoever let them in. All right, so let's go through it. The census. I'm sure this is like one of the most exciting things you've ever talked about in your podcast, is the census. But the census does not count citizens. It counts humans. Mm-hmm. So what do? You put them on that plane, and where do you send them? You send them
places
to
where you need them.
Swing states, so that they'll have more people. The census will have more people, more congressmen will come from that particular district, and then you'll figure out a way to fast track, as Kamala Harris has said, fast track them to citizenship, so that by next election, these 20 million people they let in 20 million people who vote for them because they let you in. Okay. And that is why I do not think this is worker-based. I don't think it has anything to do with worker-based. I think it has entirely to do with a deep-seated view that I want to bring in and make this a one-party country, and all left all the time. They'll try to get, if they win, they'll try to get DC. They've said this stuff. They'll make DC and Puerto Rico states so they can have 4 Democrat senators. They'll break the filibuster. And they've said, and Chuck Schumer has said, that he would pack the court with Democrats.